right, Dan Lavransky here at the Niagara Comic Con, and I'm getting a chance to talk to many of my wrestling idols. This is absolutely fantastic. And now, this is really special treat for me. One of my favorites of my youth, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Oh, Ricky, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, health is good. You know, this is it's a fun thing for me to be out here. It's unbelievable how the fans remember the matches, you know, back in the day. I'm going back 25, 30 years ago, you know, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to hit you up on a match from 25, 30 years. But before we do that, I wanted to get your thoughts because he was such a force in boxing, of course, but professional wrestling, too. And we just had the passing of Muhammad Ali. And I just wanted to you were at WrestleMania 1
Correct.
When Muhammad Ali was there. So I just wanted to get some of your thoughts on the life and times of Muhammad Ali.
Well, you know, I think throughout the world right now, everybody has it's got a strange feeling. You know, it's a feeling of sorrow, a feeling that we lost somebody important, a feeling that here's a guy that was way ahead of his time, wasn't bashful about speaking out. But, you know, as you look back, and I've been watching all the stuff that they've been putting out him for the last couple of days, starting yesterday, and, you know, here's a guy that probably originated wrestling promos. You know how the guys back in the day used to do promos? You know, I'm going to get you this, that, you know. Even though that Muhammad's character wasn't that, but he was surely way out there. He would express his voice. And I don't know that if any of our old-time, old-school wrestlers who grew up watching Muhammad Ali was taking some of the tips of what they were watching and putting their own little twist on it for wrestling. Who's to say it didn't happen? I would think it did. But, you know, there's a great man that is, as everybody has said time and time again on the news, that, you know, that's a man that really, I think when it's all said and done, he was really out to help everybody out and do things which was really right. Yeah.
Did you get to talk with him or meet him at that WrestleMania?
WrestleMania 1, Madison Square Garden, I gave a knock on the door, his dressing room door, and somebody said, come in. I just poked my head in. And, of course, Muhammad was sitting there, and he had his entourage, his manager and some other guys there. His entourage was there. I didn't even walk in the room altogether. I just stuck my head in, and I just said, hey, I'm Ricky Steamboat. I'm one of the performers tonight of the show, and I just wanted to just say hello. And they all said, hey, Dragon, or something, you know, hey, Ricky, and they waved. And Muhammad said, you know, hey, good to meet you, type of thing. 5 seconds. Right. Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
But what I think is amazing is that looking back, I got a chance to say something to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking with Lex Luger there, and he actually got a chance to talk with him as well. I think Muhammad, he was a wrestling fan. He liked pro wrestling.
Oh, sure he did. Yes, he did.
You know, he was quoted a couple times. You were talking about the promos that he loved Gorgeous George and Fred Blassie, and he kind of drew from those guys.
Okay. Yeah. You know, that first WrestleMania, he was a special guest referee for the main event.
Yeah.
Hogan and...
the tag match.
Yeah, the tag match. Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mr. T and Hogan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Now, you mentioned earlier how you're here at the convention and people are always asking you about matches 25. I'm going to bug you, but everyone talks to you about Ric Flair. Everyone talks to you about Randy Savage.
Right.
I don't want to go there. That's been covered. I would like to ask you about Jay Youngblood. Because when I was young, I remember the feud with you and Youngblood against Knodel and Private Nelson, and I just remember it being such a hot
Slaughter.
Yeah, such a hot program.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get some of your thoughts of that time period, that program. You had the big match in Toronto of like 15,000 people or something.
Yeah, we had in a cage, so it was a big draw. Youngblood was a great piece of talent. You know, the guy weighed, 195 pounds soaking wet, but when you were able to watch him, and I use the term work in the ring, and I'm standing on the apron, you know, God, the things that he would do, his facials, his body language, his fingers, you know, the way he would move, and then the way he would fire back, even though he was a lot smaller than most of the guys he would go up against. But just the way he would fire back at the guy would make everybody watching would say, "Holy God Almighty, that kid's still firing back!" You know, it was just so good. Also, a very, very close friend. We became like brothers. After all, we were together for over 5 years. Struck down early with a cancer deal, at the age of 29.
Wow, he was that young.
29 years old.
Wow.
Still just a pup. So, but what a great piece of talent. And a lot of people talk about Ricky Steamboat and the way Ricky would work in the ring, but there's a lot of things that I was watching my younger partner Jay do in the ring that I actually took and added my own little spin to it. But he and a great teacher and a great friend.
How did you guys hook up? Did promoters put you together? Just think two great baby faces? Or?
No, when he first came in the Carolinas in the late 70s, I liked him just as a guy to start with, and then watching him in the ring, and I thought the two of us would do well as a tag team. In the Carolinas, a lot of the storylines that were developed and programs, the Carolinas were known as a tag team territory. So that being said, there was a lot of great tag teams that come through that area. So teaming Youngblood up together, I liked him as a guy, and he became a good friend, and I like his work in the ring.
And what was it, that feud with Kernodle and Nelson and Slaughter? Like, I was really, really young, but I just remember the when you'd see clips of the live events and stuff, the crowd just going nuts for that match. Like, what was it? Just the classic good babyface and heels, or?
We did a few things that were never done, and one of them was we had a contract signing on television. Very seldom do you ever see a contract signing on TV. Most of the time you just see the wrestling card, and you see from the opening match all the way up through the main event. And so for the very first time, the fans actually got to see something a little different, something behind the scenes, to which here we have an actual contract signing for a championship title match, and that was for the World Tag Belts. Slaughter threw in a little amendment to which it said that if Jay and I did not defeat them, that we can no longer continue as a tag team. So in other words, we had to dissolve our as being partners. We didn't know it was coming. At least we showed we didn't know it was coming. And it was a big surprise. But it actually, people watching it, they were taken back for a moment, and I had fans tell me afterwards, they were talking to their television saying, don't sign the contract. Ricky, don't sign it. Jay, don't sign it. The championship's not worth it. If you guys lose, you'll never be a tag team. We had such a big following and great fun. But that's a good, solid, diehard fan, and that's why they came out. We signed it. We ended up winning the championship. We had a ton of return matches with those guys,
right,
and drew big business. I understand now that even it's not so much that the money, the attendance is what still holds on the record books for the old Jim Crockett library. But money-wise, of course, ticket sales are much higher than they were back then. But you couldn't dispute how many tickets that were sold. I mean, we had 30 straight return matches. All 30 of them were in cages in a month, and every night was a record.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. You just don't see that kind of intensity anymore, I don't think, right?
Well, I think back then it was all about being able to tell a story.
Right.
Being able to tell a story. Here, Youngblood and Steamboat are ever going to be able to get those belts back, and part of the story with Slaughter and Kernodle was the fact that Slaughter was taking a guy, Don Kernodle, that never ever won a match, and said, under my military style of training, I'm going to it will improve his wrestling skills, to which he will then become a winner. Well, week after week after week, it showed Kernodle improving, and finally Kernodle got his first win. And then Sarge took him under his wing, and all of a sudden they beat Youngblood and Steamboat, and now they're the World Tag Team Champions. So, it's all about telling the story and the fans being able to relate to it,
right,
which then created the interest.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that you don't see. I really miss that kind of storytelling. You don't really see that nowadays,
It helps get you involved in a different way. It almost brings a personal aspect into it. Yeah.
Just quickly, too, that was a great highlight. What do you consider the highlights of your career? Because, you've had a fantastic career. What are the big moments for Ricky Steamboat?
Of course, the match that Savage and I had at WrestleMania 3.
Yep.
Chi-Town Rumble with Flair in '89, and the trilogy matches that we had, the return in New Orleans and then the match in Nashville. And out of the three, the second one was my favorite.
Right. It's interesting, though, when you hear Flair talk, he always talks about the countless matches you guys had years before that nobody gets to see.
Well, I was getting ready to say that.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
I don't know how many hundreds of times we've worked with each other, but it's like you mentioned earlier, those matches that we were in Greenville, South Carolina, or Charleston, South Carolina, or Fayetteville, North Carolina. You know, the little towns throughout the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic region, and there were no cameras there. It was just a regular live event, but in front of maybe 1,200 people instead of 12,000. You know, we'd still go out there and wrestle for 57 minutes with a 60-minute time limit, and everybody's standing on their seats screaming and hollering. Those are moments that never can be duplicated, and nobody will ever have a chance to recollect or see because they weren't taped.
Yeah.
But the classic matches that we had in front of such small crowds that would even measure up to some of the World Championship matches that him and I had that were on pay-per-views, that were aired on, coast-to-coast television,
It's absolutely amazing. And finally, I just wanted to, obviously, you look like you're in fantastic health. You look amazing. And well, what do you do now besides doing appearances and things like that? How does Ricky Steamboat spend his time now?
Well, I'm still employed with the WWE. I'm an ambassador to the company.
Right, you were a road agent for a while.
Road agent, I've been a trainer, been a producer. So this part of my life is more like I'm a spokesperson for the company. So WWE will send me out to do speaking engagements, to do appearances. We do a lot of work with St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We do a lot of work with the Special Olympics and stuff like that. And then other appearances. So I just an acting ambassador to the company and a spokesperson right now, which is a great gig, very easy and very rewarding, And then I'll do stuff like this too.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with us. It was so great to meet you, man. I've been a fan since I was friggin' smaller than this table.
And how old are you now?
52.
Now you're really making me feel